This is the strategy supercharger. And Michael and I, some time ago, we started talking about my mindset work with the traders and the value we brought to them. We look at his strategy analysis and his live workshops. And we thought, what if we were to bring these together? And we called it the strategy supercharger. And so we're going to talk today how our collaboration is going to be a real revolution for many independent and even professional traders. So I'll start by introducing Michael. And I got to know Michael on the floor of the Pacific Exchange back in the early 80s. We were both market makers there, and I worked for an arbitrage firm. And being on the floor was such a raw trading experience. Nothing between you, there's no screen. It's raw. There's people yelling and screaming. And Michael went on to trade in Amsterdam, in London, and he can tell you a bit more about that. So he has about 40 years of trading experience. And I have about 40 years of not only trading, building a trading firm, but also working as a therapist, which was my original career. So I'd like to welcome everybody and say hi to Michael. And do you want to say a little bit about yourself before we start?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody, and good morning, depending on what part of the world you're sitting in, and good evening. Again, I'm Michael Filighera, and as Rich mentioned, I started my journey here in San Francisco on the Pacific options trading floor. And initially, I'd had a fascination about trading. I had a fascination about pits, actually. To just quickly encapsulate that, my university work was in music. And so I was studying at a conservatory in Chicago, and around the corner, it was on Michigan Avenue. If I went around the corner, I could walk to the Board of Trade and go up into the visitors galleries. And what I could witness was, first of all, the bond pit, which was much bigger than my brain could imagine, but also the grain pits. And I was fascinated by the noise and the excitement and the movement. It just fascinated me, that energy. Fast forward, when I came back to California, I had decided I better want to do something. So I ended up walking down to the exchange and just kind of checking in. And my first actual job was I worked for the exchange and kind of worked my way up. And then in that process, a friend of mine there was on the floor trading as a market maker and asked me if I wanted to trade. And I said, well, sure. And off we went. And so again, I've traded here in San Francisco as a market maker. I traded on the London traded options market and also on the European options exchange in Europe. And then while I lived in Amsterdam, I also got my introduction to all electronic trading. And that was via the DTB, the German exchange, the Deutsche Terminbörse. And that's where I began to put all together this electronic stuff. And so when I came back to the US in 1997, I returned to the Pacific Exchange, and it was in its glory. It was a topping pattern, you might say, in terms of a market. The floor wasn't all that big, but we had 500 members. We had stocks that just going crazy. It was at the height of blowing up the dot-com bubble bursting. And so I was like, wow, that I was in heaven. And there was so much to do, and there was so much trading. But after that dot-com bubble burst and the markets collapsed, particularly the NASDAQ, everything seemed to leave the floor. Richard left the floor, so I lost a good trading buddy, left the floor. But then I ended up doing the same thing. And that's where I then became more interested in day trading.
Great. Thank you, Michael. What we're going to do to talk to today, and this is why Michael and I got together, is what if we had synergy with strategy, with mindset, and with execution. So I want to get to know each of you a little bit better. So we're going to do a poll. And do you want to introduce the strategy poll, Michael, while I pull it up?
Sure. In the strategy poll, that what Rich and I both feel is that strategy is vital. It's very, very important. And so a lot of people have come to us and they're talking about their own strategies, or how do I build my strategy, or how to make the strategy work. So what we're looking at right now is that the major issues that you as traders face with your trading strategies. So some of the just a brief thing is like, you have the lack of trading rules. You don't trust your strategy. You can't connect your strategy to your trading rules. So your strategy, even though you created it, it's not all that clear in a real-time market. So you consistently are changing your strategies midstream, that your strategy, or you've been told that your strategy should produce 80% profitable trades. That's a big hang-up, by the way. I'm just sorry to say. Or you're wandering around and you're listening to this guru or another guru or this person, that person, and you're using other people's strategies without fully comprehending how they came about that strategy and how it fits them and maybe not you.
Okay.
And then plus the other myriads that everybody has.
Yeah, I'm going to launch the poll. And so check off just the primary issues that you have with your strategy, and then we'll take a look at it, and that'll help direct the conversation today. So here goes. Okay, we'll give you another minute. I remember when I started trading for the CRT, the large options arbitrage firm, my initial trainer told me that I was the worst trainee he had ever seen. And so for those of you who are struggling, I want you to know, as now that I'm retired, financially secure, that there is a path from the struggle that you're experiencing right now to your dream. There is a path. And that's what Michael and I are working. So rather than just looking at strategy problems or mindset or execution, we're looking at all of them. So we're going to end the poll here in a minute. So if you want to add anything, please do so. All right. Wow. It's a big tie. So end the poll and share the results.
Wow.
Can everybody see the results?
Wow. I'm wowing because of the response. Yeah. Wow.
Well, the winner is, I don't trust my strategy. But it's not that far ahead of everything else. So
no.
So is this your experience with the traders that come to you?
Yes. And it actually does surprise me a little bit, because most people don't want to admit that they don't trust their own strategy. So I really appreciate the openness and the honesty from everybody today, coming up and saying, well, no, I actually don't trust my strategy. And I think that's a very important starting point. Just to kind of touch on some of this, each one of these is workable, and in terms of nothing that would come as a total surprise to me. But I think that once we were to do a deep dive into people's strategy, which our intent is to do just that, and be taking a look at your strategy in a real-time trading situation, seeing it in action, that also helps with the trust issues. I think that we'll be able to pinpoint some of the I don't want to say the problems, but yeah, the problems or the blocks. The
underlying drivers of why we don't
underlying drivers, right?
Yeah,
thank you.
Why don't we don't trust our strategy?
So all of that will definitely be included. Everything that I'm reading here, keep changing strategies. So a lot of it, what keeps coming into my mind, Richard, is another section that we intend to cover in detail: market moods.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, your strategy might work in a particular market move, and that market mood may be not happening that day, and so you don't trust your strategy. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of workarounds. There's a lot of answers to be connected to what we're intending to do. But thank you so much for these are very insightful.
Okay, so next we're going to look at mindset issues. Now, since I am a therapist and my job is to expand the mindset of both professional and independent traders, this is the area that is really important to me. I mean, some people say, well, market, your own psychology is 50% of what you do. And others say, wait a minute, mindset and trading psychology are 100%. Well, since I'm a therapist, I'll vote for the 100%. But even if it's only 25%, that is huge. So we're going to look now at the issues that face you in mindset: impulse trading, missing trades, letting losses run, small profits, constant stress, debilitating criticism, fear of loss, dreams of success, fear of missing out, repeating errors, ruled by emotion. So I'm going to now set that up, mindset issues. I'm going to launch it.
It is huge.
There we go.
Very,
So,
very huge.
which of these issues, if resolved, would make a huge difference in your consistent P&L?
I have to tell you, reading over these, it's like, as an honest person, I think that there's nobody on the planet that chooses trading that can honestly say they do not experience most of these or some of these. If they were to say, oh, none of that affects me, I'd be like, okay.
I forgot in some of the polls I used to do, I'd say all of the above, and that was always the biggest choice.
Yeah, that they go for.
Yeah.
Wow. See, this is so, yes.
No really big winners, but some that are more.
I think we got a couple of big winners in there.
Okay. But I'm going to do
letting big losses run, fear of loss. And that last one down there on the bottom, repeating the same errors.
Yeah. So this is really interesting, because if we're repeating the same errors, we can try willpower, we can try discipline. We shouldn't do that. After a day's trading, we go, and I'm going to use some really nasty language. Oh, God darn it. Oh, phooey. Why do I keep doing that? I'm never, ever going to do that again. And we wake up in the morning and say, we're never going to do that again. And then in the heat of the moment, what happens? We shift our context. And this is really important to understand, that willpower, discipline, shoulds, self-criticisms don't solve this problem. It's stepping into a master trader's mindset. So we got to get the foundations of it. So what we see here is impulse trades, missing trades, letting losses run, constant stress. Oh, that's a debilitator. Speaking of which, debilitating self-criticisms, fear of loss. The dream of success is threatened when I lose. Oh my gosh, yes. Fear of missing out, repeating the same errors, and ruled by emotion. So everything here has a significant impact.
Totally.
So imagine what if these no longer drove your trading? Holy mackerel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we could play whack-a-mole, by trying to stop each one. And this is what I do, is do hot seat work.
Yeah.
We have exercises that look at what is the underlying psychological driver. And what's amazing is, once we discover that, and you step into a belief system that works better for you, traders announce that my marriage gets better, other things, because we're down at a foundational level, that it's going to resolve other things.
May I add one thing, Richard?
Yeah.
When we're speaking of mindset, I know that others have placed importance on mindset, but I believe that truly understanding the mindset is critical to really understanding how all this stuff comes in. So Richard and I, when we've been talking, I tell you, when I do mindset, I end up doing this. But if I'm not on a video, you can't see me. And what I'm doing is I'm preparing the parameters that I need to put around my mindset as a safety barrier to not allow what I term noise.
Yep.
Noise. A lot of what's happening here, debilitating self-criticism, the fear of loss, that's noise. That's noise that's coming in, and that's going to derail your focus. And a lot of it is self-criticism. A lot of it is that fear. So when those outside emotions can come in, it's going to break what you're really setting out to do.
Yep.
So
okay.
Again,
we're going to have a discussion of this, and I'm going to open for discussion, but I want to do one more poll first, and that's on execution issues. So I'm going to launch the poll. When it comes to actually executing, your finger is on the mouse. What happens? So I'm going to launch the poll, and what execution issues are a drag on your success? So I'm going to launch that right now. Missing good setups, jumping into trades too soon, exiting too early, canceling stops, doubling down, taking small profits and large losses, second guessing yourself, hesitating to execute. So if you were to look on what was the major drags on your success, what would that look like? Oh, we've got some real winners here.
We sure do, John.
No question here. Everything else is catching up. It's like a horse race.
Yeah.
Okay, some things aren't. Canceling stops and doubling down is not a big issue. That's so good to hear.
It is actually.
Yeah.
Or it could actually mean they don't use the stop. So if it's not there, I don't have to cancel.
Cancel it, right? Okay.
Wow. Thank you, everybody. This is really informative.
Yeah.
And it just confirms. Yeah, you're in the right place.
Okay.
You're definitely in the right place today.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. I'm going to share the results. So, Michael, you're much more on the execution side.
Yeah.
So maybe you can step through the answers to this poll, and how does this relate to your experience and the clients you have?
It relates directly to my experience, and it relates directly to my own coaching clients and folks in my trade room. First, let me say that even when we go through all of this work, many of these things will continue to be persistent in entering into your mindset, causing a simple, hiccup or whatever we want to call it. So, and more important to me when dealing with these execution. So when we're dealing with these, even though we're coming up with methodology, we're coming up with different ways and how to pull these apart and calm them and possibly put a little bit of a stop on them, that the reality is we're human. And so part of what we need to do is just deal with our humanness, and how we get back up is going to be important. So recognizing the execution issue, there are solutions to that. There are dealing with why you're missing good setups, dealing with why you're jumping in. And we're going to find that there's a lot of other emotional issues. Jumping in a trade too soon, FOMO.
Yep.
Fear of missing out, exiting a trade too early, worried that it's going to move to a loss.
Right.
So these are all emotional issues that are going to come in and affect you on how you execute your trades.
And that's why, we look at each one of these, and that's why we have exercises, we have reframes, and we have homework, or things that you can actually do to create behaviors that serve you better. So let's open it up for questions and comments right now. We've gone through the strategy issues, and that most of you share. We've looked at the mindset issues and execution issues. So so you can unmute yourself, and if you have your video on, that helps. but what, after seeing this and seeing what your fellow traders are going through and what is really important, what comes up for you?
One thing I'd kind of like to just add to this, if I could, is one thing, and this wasn't a choice on any of the polls, but one of the things I find that I have a really hard time, that I just constantly fight with it, and it has to do with having an analyst background, I think, is that one of my key errors is thinking I know what's going to happen next, and then making a decision based on what I think is going to happen next on how I'm interpreting price action, let's say, playing out against whatever my bias might be and so forth. But the problem being that I'm basically stepping in and overriding what the market's necessarily doing just because of what I think might happen next. And of course, you know, I've been proven 100 million ways to Sunday that I know nothing. Yet I keep, you know, I keep tending to make that mistake. And I'm not quite sure what feeds that necessarily, but I do know that coming from an analyst background, that, you know, I guess I gravitate toward detail. And then when I see a lot of that playing out, because I was trained to come to conclusions on my analysis, then that tends to play out, I think, a lot of times in my market decisions, and it's completely off base.
Yep.
So
because of your knowledge, your experience, you go through it. There's an attachment there. When I was on the floor and one of my traders in my firm would come to me and say, "Hey, the market's going higher today," I go, "Whoa, what probability is it that the market's going higher?" Because as soon as he or she told me that, immediately they have an ego stake in that. Or if you've invested in analysis, you have an ego stake in it. So we have exercises that look at those attitudes and assign probabilities. And also our lucrative and lousy trade reframe creates a very different way of looking at your trades, where we go to process rather than outcome. So there's a lot of stuff there, Rick. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because that is a big part of the issues that we look at in this course.
Yes. May I go ahead, Rick?
Well, I just want to add to that too, that one of the things that I find that contributes to that is when I am doing prep, let's say, for the day, and I'm coming up with a few scenarios that I think might be able to play out, I find it way too easy to get married to one or more of those scenarios and not just let the market play out and follow the market. And sometimes I wish I would just say, I'm not going to do any prep. I'm just going to come in and I'm going to take what the market, I'm going to respond to how the market is printing, and then I just want to follow the market. And when I think about that, it makes it seem so much less stressful, as opposed to coming in with 1, 2, and 3 plans like a lot of people say you should do, when I find it creates a lot of stress. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be just easier to come in with no preconceived notion about what's going to happen today and just let the market open and do its thing, and then just follow it?
I've seen a couple of gamers who go to the market and treat it like a game. They don't know shit about the markets, shit about trading, but they just look at it like a game and they're just there playing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael, you want to add something?
I would like to add something. Rick, what you're discussing or what you're talking about, that how it applies to you, I am also an analyst. I am an internationally published Elliott Wave analyst. So, and I trust Elliott Wave and I trust Fibonacci, and I'm very good at putting that together. But what I think sometimes what happens is you may do some of your analysis and it may be applicable on a little bit larger scale. So it's being able to scale down to the time frame in which you're choosing to trade. And then again, you've already picked up some very, very interesting points that need to be taken in. If you have a directional opinion based on your analysis, does not mean that you're necessarily wrong, nor does it mean that the market goes up through it, that it's wrong. But what I think one thing to quickly add, and you work on that, is you are following the price action. And if the price action takes you above and beyond your point, who do you want to follow? So in my case, one thing that comes up, and you stated it, and Richard, you stated it as well, I hate being wrong.
Yeah. Michael, I'm going to cut you there because to keep moving, we all hate being wrong. And John just texted me and he said, if I could get over my fear of pulling the trigger, I could make a significant amount of money from my strategy and trading rules in a variety of futures markets. How do you address the issue and how common is it among both professional and independent traders? Welcome to the world, John.
Huge.
So what we do is we say, what is the positive intent of that fear? And often I will have a direct conversation with that fearful part of yourself.
Yeah.
And we will learn what the underlying drivers are. We can try discipline. You've tried many things, John. But if we understand what the positive intent of that underlying driver is, then we can say, okay, how do we improve on that positive intent? And sometimes it goes down to our belief systems, sometimes to our very core identity. For example, a trader who says, I have to prove my father right. I have to prove that I can make this to my spouse. I have to prove this. This is the part of my dream. And when you have that kind of drivers, then we have a big fear that, or a need to prove. So we go to the underlying driver. So thank you for that comment, John. So what I would like to emphasize today, and this is how difficult many traders experience their trading, because especially as technical guys, as analysts, or technologists, or programmers, we approach it from a strategy point of view. And we're missing the mindset and awareness. For us more transformational people, and I say that in quotes, we approach it from the mindset, but we don't trust our strategy. And that was one of the issues that many of you have. So we get to the point where we have a strategy, we have a fully transformational mindset, and we execute prematurely, or we're fearful and we don't pull the trigger. And as John just said so clearly in the chat box, if I could just execute my strategy, I'd be profitable. So what we're doing here is we are going to combine the strategy, the mindset, and the execution. We're going to do it with you for 12 weeks. And we're going to create a path for each one of those. And it's not just whack-a-mole. In other words, it's not just we take this problem and look at it and tell you to just stop it. I don't know if any of you ever seen that Bob Newhart therapist thing, just stop it. What we do is we look at the underlying issues and give you a foundation so that you can improve not only your trading, but the rest of your life. So Michael, do you want to add what you think that synergy is going to, how that's going to impact a trader who's been struggling, or a trader who wants to expand their current profitability, or maybe even traders who are beginning or who've blown out a couple of accounts?
I think it is very important, and exactly what you said, there is a synergy between all of these facets of putting together your trade and having an understanding of all these components that are coming in, and how so often I have found that people work all of this in a stagnant screen that's closed. If the market's not moving, everything looks great. If I do this and this and this and that, perfect. And it all sounds great and it all makes sense. And then you step into a live market and the market's not checking in with you first to say, gee, what was your strategy today? Let's get this all together so we can make it very smooth for you to where you want to enter, where you want to get out. And so it's a matter of then taking that extra step, which is the market itself. And it's understanding, well, what is the market really telling me today? And as Rick was mentioning earlier, you can come in with one idea and the market decides, well, sorry, that wasn't on our agenda today. And it goes off and does its own thing. And so, yes, combining these is extremely important, but having a firm understanding and then maybe taking a deep dive into one part of it so that you get a better understanding of where's it coming from within you, and then putting some of that together, then moving forward again. And so often, I think what also is real important to understand is that every last one of us, even with 40 years experience, we're still a work in progress. If I would ever approach the market to say there's nothing else I can learn, then I might as well just hand here's my account. You guys split it up and just go have lunch, because essentially that's what's going to happen. So I think we're a constant work in progress. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly having to change because the marketplace itself is changing. And just to quickly encapsulate that thought, I was a floor trader. I traded in pits. It was easy to see what was going on. It was easy to see who's doing what. You got names of who's coming in as a buyer or a seller. Now suddenly I'm going to step outside of that. And now I have is a screen that's flashing numbers in front of me. It's a whole different world.
Just to interrupt you just for a moment, I remember John George coming in, getting some quotes and, 1,000 up, really big size going back. And then you could see him moving rapidly into the pit. And all of a sudden we were hitting bids and offers everywhere in order to prepare for that. Just the pace of him walking.
Right. And so when we got an opportunity to kind of reframe what it is you're going to need and what it is you got to really be aware of and what you need to include in a mindset. Mm-hmm. So, and then you're going to be ready to step in and you're going to learn real quick what the market can and can't do and what really is going on. And that's a big part of it, which is why a lot of my part of what we'll be presenting together is going to be in a live market. Because that's an important component that seems to get missed out. You go to a lot of webinars and what do they show you? Well, I got my whatever they're called, presentation, PowerPoint presentation, and it's showing buy here, sell here, or whatever the situation is. It's like, wow, I wish it was that easy.
Yep.
I wish it was that clear, but it isn't.
Johnny Mac just made a comment in the chat. I took a day trading course and they kept saying trading is 80% psychological, but they had 0% of the content in the course. I appreciate your approach. There's so much behind our decisions while trading that are deeply rooted in our genetic and
absolutely
genetic conditioning. So what he is really supporting what you're saying is that in the moment, rather than from a PowerPoint, that's where the rubber meets the road.
It is where the rubber meets the road. You're absolutely right. And thank you for including that. And thank you for that ad. Who was it that gave us that?
Yeah, Johnny Mac.
Thank you, Johnny, because you're right. You're absolutely correct. And in day trading, to 80% and then not included. Wow, that's something. Well, here you're talking to two people that also realize, I don't know if we're giving it that high of a percentage. Rich is an analyst, so yes, of course. It's going to be way up there. I think there are other parts that go along with it, but it is extremely important. And if you don't deal with it, if you don't take care of that part, success will continually elude you.
So, any other questions or comment? Can give your opinions of stop loss orders?
I can give my opinion on stop loss orders.
Can we do that briefly?
Yes, I can. Stop loss orders in my book are put in and you don't take them out because they're going to either be where your trade that you just put on is no longer valid. And so it's your protection against, well, I'll just step back and let it happen.
Michael, they're just take out your stop and then reverse the market. Come on.
And then you're going to come back and I have to tell you, it's an old wives' tale because there's no way. It's a guess where they think today where stops are placed. It's a guess. Previous times, yes, because they could go to a specialist on the floor and say, where are your stops? I'm not supposed to say that. Well, yeah, I guess Fitzroy could be. but say it could be a buy stop, and that's not necessarily, selling low. But I get that. I just think in terms of like stops are there for a reason. And if you don't like the reason, then you shouldn't put the trade on.
Very brief story. I was teaching a class in Los Angeles through another firm, and one of the guys there said that he was afraid to put on trades. And I said, why? And he said, because I lose so much money. So I gave him homework for the next week to automatically enter a 2-tick stop. And he said, he yelled, he screamed, he said, that's not possible, but he agreed to do it. Came back in 2 weeks, and I said, what happened? He says, I'm no longer afraid to put in a trade because I know I won't go emotional. I won't try to double down. I won't let the loss runs. So all of a sudden I'm executing smoothly and easily. But not only that, that practice has gotten my entries a lot better.
Yeah, true.
Okay. So if we have any other comments or anybody wants to talk, we have Michael. I must just compliment you on moving right through this and covering major points and doing it very succinctly. So well done.
But you got to say why, Richards, because we actually did a little rehearsal between each other and how this would all come. And Richard kept expanding the time frame because I go on. I tend to embellish.
Well, you have so much to say and so much important things to say. So what we're doing is we want to bring the strategy, the mindset, the execution together. And not only that, for some of you who are confident that you can bring your decision process, your abilities to the marketplace and make money and need funding, is to provide an avenue for that. So what we're going to be doing is 12 weeks. And the 12 weeks includes a couple of times a week. One, we're going to be dealing just like this in a Zoom meeting, and we're going to go through the very specifics. And then Michael's going to run a real-time trading Zoom meeting where you can actually watch him trade, or we can even watch you trade. Now, I want to warn everybody here, and I shouldn't use a nasty word. We don't mess around, and I don't mean mess. We don't mess around. We look to what are the underlying driving issues, and for some people it could go right down to their worthiness as an individual. It could be guilt around being successful or wealthy. In fact, I just finished a book earlier this year, A Private Conversation with Money, around those issues of how we sabotage our success. So we're going to be meeting. It's going to be a small group, 12 or less. We're going to be meeting after market hours, and then we're going to also have a live trading meeting once a week where we can test strategies and you can watch a strategy being successfully implemented. We're going to have a personal, to get here, we want to make sure that this is good for you. So the first step is a personal call with either Michael or myself or both to see if what we're doing makes sense for you and opens doors and gives you a step into the master trader's mindset. There's a lot of people, and you're not going to believe this, and some of the people here are going to be in this group, and that is they're stuck in the struggle. Because in the struggle, we can still maintain our dream. But what if we expose ourselves, our strategy, our psychology, our execution? The risk is, what if it shows up that we can't make it? Oh no, I would rather struggle and hold my dream. Now, most of you don't believe this. Even the people who experience this probably don't believe it. But after viewing 2,000 assessments, hundreds of private clients and groups, I find that some traders would rather maintain the pain of the struggle than actually succeed. So we're going to go right down, and if that's the case, that's going to be uncovered. And if you have the courage, that is going to be the start of something really big because that impediment, that drag on what you're doing, we are going to, like cancer, just root it out. We're going to give you market metrics. In fact, let me bring that up.
While you're bringing that up, can I
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
add one thing to what you were just saying?
Add go.
I want to talk just very briefly on strategy, because it seems to be, it's an important part of what we're trying to do. And what I intend to do with that is take a deep dive in your strategy, not mine, your strategy, so that we can take a look at what's going on, why it doesn't work, what your fears are as it relates to your own strategy. Now, if you're coming in with a brand new strategy, I want to be able to take it into a real live trading situation, and let's see what it does. So again, I think we're trying to build an opportunity where people can come in with their strategies, try to understand what's working, what's not working about it. And then also, if it's new or you've made some adjustments, let's put it to use. Let's see if it works. This is the place to do it. And so by taking that deep dive, again, looking at it honestly. So the one thing I will add, I've got nothing to prove. I have all just things to share, things to bring that I've learned, that I've used, that I've had success with, and bring that to everybody. So hopefully we all kind of move and reach the goals that we want to reach.
Thank you. So here is an application that you'll have access to, and it's our market metrics. And what we do is we look at the previous behavior issues, and you'll see some normal ones set here. And this is where what Michael was just referring to is the deeper dive. We look at the positive intent. Until we can locate the positive intent of those behaviors, it ends up with discipline, willpower, shoulds, and judgments. So once we understand the positive intent, then we can ask, okay, what would be a better way to express that positive intent? And then we go over to the column B here. For example, feeling comfortable, allowing all my trades to play out as pre-planned. Then what we can do is every day we can use the drop-down menu, and we can select the color that represents how well we did or didn't do. Now, when I see this chart, I can see exactly where the issues are. For some people, they want to make commitments to the group. Other people want to improve their daily routine. We do our set scores, which are our sensations, emotions, and thoughts. Because if, in fact, psychology is one of the driving factors of our success, how do we get to it? It's ephemeral. What do you mean? My psychology, my mindset. I don't even know what that means. And you're right. You know, all these promises about, especially the transformational ones, it's also cloudy. But what if we were to break it down into your physical sensations, your emotions and thoughts, and we had a way to measure them? All of a sudden, we can see our greens and reds. We have a way of measuring going from outcome to process in our lucrative and lousy trades. And we don't have time to go into that now, but that reframes how the pain of loss. So we look at lousy trades, lucrative trades, which have nothing to do with profitability. But then we can see exactly what happens with our net P&L. So we can see our behaviors, we can see our commitments, our routines, our set scores, our lousy trades and lucrative trades, and we can see how they impact. So rather than just being a general how-to strategy or how to have a better mindset, we really refine it by actually trading the strategy in real time, where you can watch, by measuring the mindset with very specific things, and we can see how that plays out in our execution. Do you want to add anything to that, Michael? Or
I do.
questions?
I want to do this, the mind metric system, folks. What really, again, I've mentioned a couple of times, 40 years experience. Richard has approximately 40 years of trading experience and analysis experience and teaching experience, et cetera, between the two of us, 80 years. But what really sits behind that mind metrics, that Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, at least 10 years of work? and refining
Oh, boy.
and development.
Yeah, the first one was really crude, and
I remember, yeah, because I did it with you.
that's right.
So we're going back. This is years of combined work, years of group work. So working within a group, picking what is important, picking up how do we measure. And what's come out of that is, for example, the SET score, sensations, emotions, and thoughts. This is an important exercise that each one of us as traders needs to do every morning before we step before the screen, before you put your hand on the mouse. Have an idea of where your own mindset is coming from. Thanks.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another screen, which is our agendas. Now, honestly, we're kind of building the airplane as it's going down the runway before they enter the runway. But what you can see here is we've got clear solutions for every week. You know, week 1, week 2, what are we going to do? What's the homework? What's the course overview? We're going to talk about market moods, strategy overview, evaluation accounts, live trading session, our Compass course, which is an online course which we haven't even had time to talk about, which will be included with this, which deals with all the major issues you guys signed off in the polls, so that we don't have to, so we can use our real-time communications without having to go back, you know, just do some of the basics, so we can really refine our stuff in our real-time communications. So that is another thing that I wanted to share with you. Guided visualizations. Stepping into the master trader's mindset. Our brains will not take us to a place that we can't visualize, that we haven't vetted for problems, and that we can fully step into it and it feels better. So we have a set of guided visualizations for traders so that you can start to visualize the master trader's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'll give you all a copy of my book, A Private Conversation with Money. And that deals with success, wealth, ethics, mindset. So it's a pretty easy read, but it also has some online exercise with it.
How much does this course cost?
Right. So, you know, originally this course, we're looking at 10 grand because it requires so much of our time. But I thought, what are we able, could we create different levels that almost everybody could afford? And so we thought, what if you wanted to attend all the meetings, get all the online stuff, but you didn't do any personal evaluation? So that, rather than being 10 grand, was $4,500. If in fact you wanted some personal evaluation and you wanted to not have the private coaching, that would be like 6,000. And if you wanted to go all the way and get private coaching, mindset, strategy analysis, and get both Michael and my times, that would be 10,000. But of course, and here comes the manipulation. We all know what do you know what I just did?
What did you just do?
What did I, Fitzroy, you're not in your head. What did I just do?
Hang on.
What?
Can you, okay? Yeah, you just set us up.
Yeah,
So
what's in
set us up,
NLP called, I set an anchor.
Yeah.
Now you have that anchor in your mind, and this is total manipulation.
So that
But
next time
if
around,
but for those of you who want to have an option, so what we decided that it's too much to ask people to make that decision, especially unlike Fitzroy, who, you know, who knows us and has been with me for a long time. Other people for the first time who don't know Michael or myself. So what we're doing is you can't sign up for the course, but what you can do is buy a $100 option. And that $100 option gives you the ability to have a conversation with Michael or myself, depending on which you would prefer. And then from there, we can really look at what you need, what would be good, and to make sure that something of this intensity and breadth and depth is going to work for you. You want to add anything to that, Michael?
I think you made it pretty clear, and And I think that, yes, the reason we're offering this is because I think we've all kind of gone the rounds, and we know there are a lot of people out there, they're offering different things and offering different prices. And we're kind of coming together and saying, well, we're trying to put all of these facets together and into one place where you can come in and learn these different aspects of how to become a successful trader. So I think that buying an option, like you said, for anybody who's an option trader, you're buying a call.
Yep, you're buying a call.
You're buying a call, and essentially, I think it really is to the benefit that if you're kind of trying to decide before I make this commitment, is this going to work for me? Am I really going to get something out of it? Well, that's where you need to come set an hour aside where you can come and talk with Richard or me, and we can answer that question, because we can do a little bit of a deep dive personally to see, well, where we need to work. What do we need to do? And then for me and for both of us, I think we can balance that against what we've already done with others and can help you, the perspective, to put something around that to tie it up and to go, yep, all right, I see that this could work for me.
Right.
Now, one thing that I wanted to say, just as answering the next question, Richard, times of the sessions.
Right.
We both will be sending out, because we know that we have people coming from around the globe, actually. So not knowing, I'm going to take a guess, Barbosa, that you're from Mexico, but that's a different time zone. So we'll be putting out we'll put out the different time zones so we can see which one's going to work for people. That's how we'll work that. Except for the live trading, it's going to be during the US session and likely early in that US session. So because that's where all the activity happens, and that's where we'll get the most use out of the live trading sessions. So I hope that answers your question there.
Yeah, they generally for the US people, they prefer like 1 or be 4 or 4:30 Eastern time after the market closes for our longer sessions. So that would be the most likely, but I'm willing to accommodate in other time zones, and we can put out a preference survey for that. Thank you, Baboso de Mexico, and you'll read the emails. So we'll have a preference for that, and all sessions will be recorded and available to everyone. So you can not only refresh yourself and review them if you want, but if you miss a session or two, you have all the availability of the recordings. So
Right.
Questions or comments, psychology, strategy, execution. Why Rich and Michael are doing this? How have you been disappointed before in spending money? And gosh, so many people have come to me and say that I've had one guy said he spent over $100,000 on courses, lessons, coaches, and he was still struggling. And he said, I can't trust anymore.
Right. It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. So that's why we're going to set up the option with a discussion. So I put, if you want the option, mindmuscles.com/supercharger. And I put that in the chat window. You can get the option. That'll get you private conversations with Rich and or Michael. We can go into more depth. So, and that then will tell you, both Michael and I are financially secure. We want to make the world a better place. We both have big hearts. And so we're happy to do this. We don't need you to do this. My satisfaction in life is first my grandkids. I got to admit it. You don't come first. But next is traders whose lives have been changed. And that for me is the big thrill. So no, there's no sales pitch here. This is just a conversation to get to know each other. There's no obligation. You've bought the option. It's yours. So thank you all. Really appreciate everyone joining us. Michael and I are thrilled to do something new. It's energizing. It's incredibly hopeful. Michael has this wonderful quality of bringing out the best in me, and I support him and bring out the best of his 40 years of experience. So we'll all see you and hope to see you in our private session. So take care, be well, and we will send a follow-up email.
Thank you, everybody.